appropriate for an Easter celebration, so thank you very much. We are ripe with flowers today, inside and out, and it is a very beautiful day. I'm Susan Wolf, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to Unity Church this morning, on this Easter morning. And I missed you last weekend, and I was on a trip to the Keokuk area. And I just wanted to share my findings. I was fulfilling a childhood dream of going geo-hunting, and I've always wanted to do that, and so I got to do it last weekend, and it was very interesting. We went to a place called Jacob's Geodes, and it was very interesting. I see some heads nodding, so maybe you've been there, but it's just a little place off the road, and the guy that owns it was sitting in a little trailer, and so he had tools out there, and he said, just take whatever you need. And we went on this little road back to this area where the geode mine was, and it's sort of a clay wall. It was just brown, ugly dirt, and you take a shovel or a tool, whatever, and dig at the clay, and out pops these little round geodes, and they're very unattractive from the outside. They're covered with sort of a dusty clay, but then when you crack them open, there's crystals inside, and it is the state rock of Iowa. And I just wanted to share this with you. I'm going to pass it around so you can see it. And Deb and I were talking that it kind of reminds you of us as people. You might be surprised what's on the inside if you take the time to look. So I'll pass this around.
What I said was, that'll preach.
So, anyway, welcome to Unity Church of Ames this morning, and our chaplain for today will be Liz White, and she'll be available to pray with you from 11:30 to 11:50 in the prayer room. And after our service today, we will have our Easter potluck, so please join us if you're available for that. Please join me for an opening prayer. Divine, loving Spirit, we gather together this Sunday as is our custom, a special day in celebration of Christ. The birth of Christ would not have held such meaning without his sacrifice. The closing of the circle. His life and teachings are an illustration of the dichotomy that is life. We are so blessed. We're grateful for the beauty of this time of year in which to celebrate rebirth and renewal. The great beauty in nature is also our teacher. Christ's work is done in me and in the world. I believe he has risen. He has risen indeed. Amen. And so it is. So we let it be. Musical selection by Clark Ford.
All things are born here.
And now we will have our lesson for today. What do you imagine happened with Rev. Hill Davis?
Okay, how do I follow that? You know, life goes on, I guess. All right. Good morning and happy Easter. Look at each. Turn around, look at each other. You all look so beautiful this morning. You'd think it was Easter or something. Happy Easter, happy spring. Hoppy Easter, right. God calls him the Easter rabbit, you know, Hoppy Peter Cottontail. So, I just am going to preface all of this with, at the end of my life, if I have a tombstone, should I have a tombstone, it is going to say, testing my theories. Just so you know. I'm a little bit out there. All right. Today we are celebrating what is considered one of the holiest and most mysterious events in the Christian story, in the story of Jesus. There are accounts of it in all four Gospels. They all have a story about this Easter Sunday morning. And each one is a little bit different. It tells of Jesus' followers, all women, of course, show up at the tomb, visiting it, and they find Jesus' body not there. Now, this was a mystery. And it was quite terrifying, actually, for his followers back in first century Palestine, because they didn't understand what it would mean. What did it mean for them? For the most part, they were actually grieving the loss of their beloved rabbi, their teacher. They were grieving the loss of their leader. And they were scared. Because if the Romans would kill Jesus, what about them? They could be next. He was a radical rabbi. He was outside the politically correct Jewish leaders of his time. And he really they couldn't expect a lot of protection from those Jewish leaders or the Romans. So now what? They didn't know what to expect or really what to do next. So they did what we often do when we're scared. They hid. They hid. Now, if we were to tell the Easter story in today's popular culture, it would go something like this. CNN, breaking news headline, right? Fox News, MSNBC, all the major networks. Reporting live from Jerusalem, the body is missing. There was an execution on Friday of a well-loved Jewish leader. The man they crucified, Jesus, was buried in a tomb that had a huge stone rolled in front of it. His followers, his closest disciples, cannot be found, except for several women who were going to anoint the body of Jesus, the dead leader, in accordance with appropriate Jewish burial rituals. On Sunday morning, these women went to the tomb and found the stone rolled away and the body gone. Current information is that the women included Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jesus, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. None of them could be interviewed, except to say through a spokesperson that the body of Jesus was not there. We have a crew live on the scene, which has been cordoned off by local authorities as a crime scene. We will have more at noon on this mysterious disappearing body of the popular Jewish leader, Jesus. Can you just imagine that, right? There we are, live on the scene. Then you can imagine the cadre of experts that would suddenly be getting interviewed, right? They would be called in to mull over this unexpected turn of events. And then they would be trying to explain what happened. Or they could come to the conclusion that the body was in fact stolen, and that would become the lead story the next day. Then there would be all kinds of searchers for the body of Jesus, perhaps a bounty. And where is it? Where is it? And then there would be psychological profiles of the grave robbers. Can you just see how it would all spin out? Can you just see how it would just spin off the rails, right? Right off the rails. So here we are, thousands of years later. What do we make of this story? Because here's the deal, and this is going to sound sacrilegious since we've been singing about He is risen, but I really don't think there was a bodily resuscitation of Jesus. I really don't think we can document that that happened, and I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters, because I think that misses the point. The real questions about this, about the meaning of the Christ mystery, that's the question. What is the real meaning of this mystery? And what does that mean for our lives today? How can we take our energy out of the sensational outer experiences, right, the headlines, and direct it inward, kind of like that geode, toward the more mysterious experience of actually living that Christ consciousness? It's so easy to get lost in the weeds, right, of the hysteria. It's so easy to get lost in the weeds and miss the point of the whole story. I agree with Bishop John Shelby Spong, who wrote a book all about this. He's an Episcopalian bishop, and he also has declared that he does not believe there was a bodily resuscitation of Jesus, and it really doesn't matter, because that's not the point. And he describes traditional Christianity as getting lost in the weeds. Okay, so what is our journey on this earth? What is this story really all about? It's really about life and death, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the ending. We are born, we become conscious, we become self-conscious. You remember being 13 and how self-conscious, right? So we become self-conscious and then self-aware. We begin to become aware of our desires, our likes, our dislikes, a sense of who we are as human beings, and all of that is extremely important in our human psychological development. We begin to differentiate from our parents and establish our own sense of identity as we grow into that self-awareness. And we experience the gamut of human emotions. Like the disciples, we too feel scared. So anybody who's never felt scared, raise your hand and we'll talk after the service, right? We've all felt scared at some point or other. This is our human evolution to become emotionally mature, well-integrated human beings. That's our human journey. That is the horizontal beam. That is our birth date and our deadline. Because we all have that. Jesus had that. We have our beginning and we have our ending in this body. That is our human story. That's the horizontal beam. At some point, we become aware that there is also a vertical beam. There is something that lifts our consciousness higher out of our scaredness. There is something else. There is that something more, the universe, the energy of all that is, that lifts us out of that humanness. Our whole point in Unity, we teach that our Christ consciousness is actually our true nature, that it is of God, and that God is the one power and presence in the universe. It is about our godness. It is about those sparkling crystals that are at the essence and the center of who we are. Now here's the deal. We live at the intersection of the human and the divine, just like Jesus did. And the journey, should we choose to take it, lifts us from the scared to the sacred. Same letters, scared to sacred. What does that look like? What is that experience of moving from that scared to sacred? Because we are the Christ mystery. That's the deal here. We are that same Christ mystery. We live at this intersection of human, divine, just like Jesus did. That's why we call Jesus our way shower, not our Savior. Jesus shows us by his life how to also live. Now here's the deal. I did some research about this. There were theologians in the 1200s in the Catholic Church who also understood that this Christ mystery was at the heart of the matter. This isn't new. Richard Rohr, anybody know of Richard Rohr? He is a Franciscan contemplative priest. He's a contemporary. He's 73 years old. He lives in Santa Fe. And he is rediscovering the essential mystery, the mystical elements of what the Christ story is all about. He talks about St. Bonaventure in the 1200s, who taught the following: the perfection of God and God's creation moves full circle, which is the meaning of the resurrection. He intuited that the Alpha and the Omega had to be the same. The linchpin holding it all together was the Christ mystery, visible everywhere, everywhere, the essential unity of matter and spirit. The essential unity of matter and spirit. Humanity and divinity. The Christ mystery is the template, the model, the goal for all of creation. That's St. Bonaventure in the 12th century. Sounds like unity, doesn't it? Sounds just like what we teach. Rohr goes on to say, there were others. St. Francis, Duns Scotus, who was, I think, Scottish, Bonaventure. Their theology was never about trying to placate a distant or angry God, to earn forgiveness or to find justification for salvation. They were all about cosmic optimism, deep time, which is mystical time, timelessness, and implanted hope. Salvation was social, more social than individual, just like Old Testament covenants were. Once we lost that kind of inherent mysticism, Christianity became preoccupied with fear, unworthiness, and guilt. Much more than delighting in the all-pervasive plan that's in place and keeps unfolding. Creation keeps expanding. We are invited into that expansion, that growth, moving from scared to sacred. Allowing our consciousness to come up higher, to see our human life from that God perspective, that sacred perspective, realizing our sacredness. The Christ mystery is all about moving and learning how to hold both, being human and divine, how to hold our scaredness and allow it to open our hearts to discover our sacredness, right? You know, the asphalt concrete can break up because of the winter, and the brokenness of that allows, have you ever seen a little flower growing through that? Right? That opens us. That is what opens us. Now, this isn't new at all. Paul wrote about this whole experience in 1 Corinthians. I don't think this gets preached on Easter, but we're going to hear it here. It's under that true wisdom of God, and it's 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 10 through 16. These things God has revealed to us through the Spirit. For the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. For what human being knows what is truly human except the human spirit that is within? So also, no one comprehends what is truly God's except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we may understand the gifts bestowed upon us by God. And we speak of these things not in words not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual things to those who are spiritual. We are truly spiritual beings having this human experience. Those who are unspiritual do not receive the gifts of God's Spirit, for they are foolishness to them. And they're unable to understand them because they're spiritually discerned. Those who are spiritual discern all things, and they are themselves subject to no one else's scrutiny. For who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. So our Easter journey is to uncover, discover, recover that mind of Christ that we are. That is the mystery of the Easter story. Right here at that intersection of the spiritual and the human and the divine, that's where we hang out, right at that intersection. Now we can choose to just keep going, right? And you have your life, your human life, and it begins and it ends without ever opening to that possibility. That's a choice. And we can choose that. But we're invited by the Easter story, by the mystery of life, to move into that higher consciousness, to move into that mind of the Christ. That allows us to illuminate our consciousness, to open to infinite possibilities, far beyond what our human mind can envision. We've all had that experience, right? You've got a problem and you keep thinking about it, you can't think of the solution, and then you take it to prayer, to meditation, to quiet, to stillness. And at that point you move out of the scared of there's no solution to the sacred. There are infinite solutions. How does this look in real time? This intersection is where the scared of our humanness and the sacred of our divine nature meet. And we allow our human crucifixion experiences to lift us to that higher consciousness. And then the scared becomes sacred. I said last week, if you were here, I had a conflict with my sister. Of course, siblings, right? Who's got a sister or a brother, a sibling to have a conflict? Oh, good, I'm not alone. All right, and it was one of those human experiences, right? That put me right there, right at this meeting place of the sacred and the scared. A meeting place with my divine human nature that was ripe for either transformation or crucifixion. You know, which one do you want to have? And it was, of course, it was about something that I wanted her to do. I wanted her to do this, and I had a real attachment to that, her doing it. And when she said no by just not doing it, she didn't tell me no, she just didn't do it. Well, I was all up in her face about it, right? We were going to have that conversation. How's that for a crucifixion experience? It was right there. I spent several days hanging out on this beam in what I'll describe as righteous indignation, right? Exercising the prerogative of the big sister, because after all, I'm 8 years older, and, well, you know, right? And then I came to the awareness after telling people about it and whining and crying and talking to Todd and anybody who would listen. Oh, how's that working for you, Deb? I had enough. And I finally sat in meditation and I got it. It's like suddenly all of that dissolved, because as I sat, I realized, well, she has the right to say no. And she has the right to say no without explanation. That's okay. If we're going to have a relationship built on mutual respect and love, she can say no, and I need to make space for that. And I got out of this up to a higher consciousness, looking at the humanness. You know, we haven't had the easiest relationship. But I was, by that process of moving from scared to sacred, able to just let it be. To just let it be. Knowing that we would talk again. I mean, she hung up on me, and I say, good for her. We would talk again, and that process of opening your heart, letting those things that keep you scared open to a greater perspective, allowing that place of love to guide your life, that breaks us open to that resurrection. I believe our relationship will have a new birth. It's had many, and it will have many more. Because that's what this full circle resurrection story is all about. Breaking our hearts open to that place of compassion, that place of connection. Every one of us here has a holy moment story, or a potential of that holy moment that shifts us from the scared to the sacred. As we bring our cross to life this morning, when we do that ceremony, let us take time and recognize those relationships, those holy moments, and bless those people and circumstances that have allowed us to break out of that self-righteousness tomb into that greater reality of compassion and love. So first we're going to go into meditation time, and then we will have our flower ceremony. And the meditation song is the same one we did last week, Sweep Over My Soul. Just begin to breathe. Breathe into that inner crystal, that place, that sparkling divinity. Connecting with that place. Connecting with that holy of holies. Holding in your heart whatever that situation was or is that breaks you open seeing the full circle of crucifixion and resurrection of your life again and again and again. Breathe into that holy space. It is the space of your wholeness. And let us sit for a moment in the silence, cultivating compassion and love for all the parts of your life journey. We come back to this time and this place with a sense of rebirth, of resurrection, of new life within us, willing to honor all those people, all those events that brought us to this now moment. So let's together sing what we're going to sweep in. And so it is, and so we let it be. Take around all these beautiful Easter people here. Oh, all right, and I think it's our peace song next. Am I right? Yes. And then we'll bless the food, and then we'll have an Easter egg hunt, correct?
Yep, Easter egg hunt. Adult friendly. If anybody wants to, we have a few extra baskets that we're going to donate to YSS. If any adults want to go hunt for some eggs and put them in the basket.
Good call. All right. Prayer for protection.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
And life is fantastic. Yay!